Hey guys, Kevin is for Teen Wolf, Season 5, Episode 9, Lies of Omission, and holy shit, this episode was huge. I mean, so much happened in this episode, which is understandable because this was the last episode before the finale next week, well, the mid-season finale, which is going to be huge, and I can't wait for it, and this episode was so depressing, and so much happened. By far the best episode of the season. I know I said required reading was like one of the best episodes of Teen Wolf ever, but this had to be the best episode of the season. I mean, so much happened. Such a sad episode. And right from the beginning, I was just so into this episode from that monologue with Scott, which just shows how much he has changed as a character. I mean, a lot of this episode is showing how much people have changed. We see basically Scott, he's telling a story about his asthma being back, and it hasn't been there in like 2 years, and now it's back, and pretending that nothing's happened. He says it feels like everyone in his school senses that there's something coming, something bad. He reaches for his inhaler when he thinks about doing something about it, because, he doesn't know what's going on. And the pack is not talking or acknowledging each other. They're completely split up at this point, and Parrish doesn't seem to remember taking the bodies, and Lydia and Stiles are looking for the dead bodies, and, basically, yeah, I thought that was a really great way to start the episode, kind of show us where everyone is at this point, and I like that he said that Parrish doesn't seem to remember, doesn't know what he's doing with these bodies, because, I mean, you had to wonder what was going on with that, so he doesn't know really what he's becoming. I think that's really interesting. So, Stilinski's also hunting the killed, and the two chimeras, Corey and Hayden, are doing better and healing faster. Scott hasn't heard from Kira, and he seems more nervous than he's ever been before. And we realize that the story is being told to Theo, and Scott asks him if he really wants to be part of the pack, and Theo says he's there for him, and Scott just tells him that everything is going to get worse, and that, he's better off not being with the pack, and I was just like, Scott cannot ally with Theo, and you definitely see in this episode what Theo's goal is, because the Dread Doctors are operating on another Chimera when Theo tells them he needs more time. They tell him that Hayden is a failure, but Theo says he needs Hayden alive, and I was wondering what he meant by that, because, he's saying that he needs Hayden alive, and I was trying to figure out, what was going on with that, because obviously, why would he want to keep Hayden alive, obviously? Why would he want to do that, and what was, his main thing with that? And they tell him that Hayden is a failure, but Theo says he needs Hayden alive, and the Dread Doctors seem to be going back on their promise to Theo. And he says they promised him a pack, and when he raises his voice, the Dread Doctors just turn as if whatever they say goes and walks away from him. So Theo's kind of in this vulnerable position right now, and I think that's really interesting. I mean, is he a good guy? No, he's obviously a big antagonist, but he is very vulnerable, and that's kind of like what I like that they're doing that, honestly. That even though he is doing all these terrible things, he does have some limits. He wants to keep some people alive. He doesn't just want to kill everyone, and that's what a good villain should have. And Theo, I think, is a perfect example of a great villain. Honestly, I said it before. Theo and the Dread Doctors are the best villains that have ever been on the show, and you can just tell. You can just tell why. It's understandable. So, Stilinski and Parrish are looking for clues with a UV light, and they find traces of mercury. Now and again, Stilinski does not know that Parrish is the one that is, taking the dead bodies. He doesn't know that. So, basically, at this point, he's on his good side. But I was very worried what was going to happen with Stiles, because I was worried that Stiles was going to tell Stilinski about it, and it wouldn't end well at all. So Liam and Hayden, they seem to have this really great relationship, which I love. And again, I told you guys this. I don't ship couples, but I don't know what it is. I just love these two together. Any scene they have, I love. And it's really innocent, and he's keeping a close eye on her to make sure she's okay and let her know by reassuring her with a kiss. And just then, Hayden begins bleeding mercury and begs Liam not to tell anyone. And this whole episode, I was like terrified for Hayden. I had no idea what was going to happen to her, and I was very worried what was going to happen there. So Stiles and Lydia think it's almost like the Nematon doesn't want to be found, and Stiles says if the Nematon is covered in bodies, she's supposed to be able to find them. So Stiles almost tells Lydia that he killed Donovan. I thought he was going to tell her in that moment, which honestly, I would have been fine with, because Stiles is at the point where he just needs to tell somebody. I mean, he's been hiding it all season long, ever since he did it, and you've seen how much he's changed, how unhappy he is, how, out of place he feels. I mean, he needs to tell someone. He doesn't tell her that. He tells her that one of the bodies could be a clue, and Lydia races off, because obviously Lydia wants to know why the hell Parrish is doing this, because obviously it didn't seem like something he'd do, but he's doing it. So Lydia races off to find Parrish and to question him about the bodies, and Scott is struggling with his asthma and takes a puff of his inhaler. He hears Liam in the locker room and approaches him and tries to have a small talk, and Liam's a bit dismissive. He doesn't really want to talk to him. And again, it kind of is just showing that Scott's slowly losing everyone. You really see in this episode, he's slowly kind of losing everyone. And Scott tells Liam to remember that he's here for him. And Liam asks him if he's going to chain him to a tree again. And I like that Liam asked him that, because honestly, Scott kind of seemed like he didn't have faith in him. And Scott says all he's trying to do is protect everyone. However, Liam tells Scott that he can't protect anyone. And that's true. I mean, Scott does everything the safe way. He thinks he thinks everyone who says they want to be in the pack are in the pack. And I think it's just because of how much of a true alpha Scott is. He never really does anything wrong, and he doesn't really see why something should be done. He doesn't really see that right now. And I think that's really interesting, seeing how naive he is. So Stiles runs into Theo, and Theo's trying to convince Stiles that Scott won't blame them for defending themselves, and suddenly Stiles turns around and sees a vision of him as a dead body with mercury coming out of his mouth. Now, this really made me kind of wonder, is this going to happen? I mean, I've heard people say that Dylan O'Brien might be leaving the show, and the way they're going with this storyline, I buy it. I honestly would buy it. If Stiles is truly a goner in this show, I have to say I kind of buy it, honestly. I think that kind of is what's going on there. I think definitely I could see Stiles possibly leaving the show. Do I want it to happen? No. Stiles is my favorite character, obviously. But if he's leaving the show, they're setting it up very well. Kira definitely is not coming back. We didn't see her in this episode. So Mason's helping Corey figure out how strong he's getting, and it was very reminiscent of Mason and Liam in last season. And when Mason sees his strength, he tells him that Scott's trying to help him, that he may know something about his strength. At this point, Mason and Corey seem like the only two people that are actually going to stay allied with Scott. The problem is, they're not strong, so obviously that's like the worst people that Scott could have got stuck with. So Stilinski makes his way to the library, and he's using the black light to find more traces of mercury. He comes across a small spot on the floor and remembers what it was that Clark told him about the 2 library key cards, as well as what Stiles told him when he was looking for Donovan. So at this point, he's just trying to figure out who's doing this. So meanwhile, Theo leans over to tell Scott about Stiles when they hear sirens, and I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna tell him that Stiles killed Donovan. And luckily, those sirens stopped him from doing that. But Corey's then being rushed out of the school, bleeding, mercury everywhere, and Scott is sacred, and Theo's trying to snap him out of it. And Liam meets Hayden and tells her that they have to get out of there out of fear that the Dread Doctors could be coming after her. He knows she's in danger, and I was really worried this episode something really bad was going to happen to Hayden, I have to say, definitely. We'll get into that. So Theo's driving Scott to the hospital, and Scott asked him what he was trying to tell him in class, and Scott insists that everyone needs to start talking again, and finally, because no one's talking to him, it seems like everyone's just trying to avoid something, and Scott kind of feels like the odd man out at this point, and finally Theo opens up, and the thing here is you can tell that Theo's trying to get Scott to trust him, when obviously he's trying to just cause problems for everyone, because Theo tells him to open the glove compartment and finds a wrench that belonged to Stiles, and I'm just like, oh shit, he's gonna tell him. Now, I was very happy it happened in this way, because I was hoping that Scott would find out in a very bad way, would find out from someone else and not have Stiles directly tell him, because I knew that something would cause Scott and Stiles to no longer be friends, because they've said before, this is the season where Scott and Stiles are no longer friends and ends their friendship, and this episode you can totally see why. So Theo said Stiles dropped it at the school when he killed Donovan, and Scott just doesn't want to believe this. He thinks that Theo's lying, and Theo says Donovan went after Stiles, and when he saw what Stiles was doing, he couldn't stop it. He lies about the details, saying that Stiles kept hitting Donovan, crushed his skull, and he's making Stiles look out to be the bad guy, and something inside of Scott seems to believe what Theo's saying, probably because Theo's the only one that's actually talking to him, and basically his plan is working perfectly. Like, if you want to talk about someone that's in the best position right now, it's Theo. Even though he's very vulnerable and not getting what he wants from the Dread Doctors, he is basically getting exactly what he wants. He wants, Scott to think that his best friend is this psychopath, basically. And Theo makes it pretty believable and encourages Scott to talk to Stiles. And I really love that scene, I have to say. I thought that was really well done, and that was definitely really great. I really enjoyed that. So Malia can't seem to concentrate in class. This scene was really interesting. Natalie asks a girl named Beth to close her laptop, and when she does, she bites her nails. They come right off. It's disgusting. I couldn't watch that. I mean, it was really gross stuff. And there's also some residue on her mouth, and Malia's stopped before she goes after Beth, and Natalie tells her that she knows what's going on. She knows what's going on, but she thinks they should all concentrate on school. I'm gonna say this right now. She's hiding something. She definitely knows more than she thinks, and I don't trust Natalie. I don't know what it is, but there's something about Natalie that I just don't trust at all. And the way that Natalie said that to her, I definitely don't trust her. I don't know what it is right now, but I don't trust Natalie at all. So, Malia obviously doesn't listen to her. She leaves, and Parrish and Lydia are driving to the possible location of the Nematon, and Malia approaches Beth, who tells her she knows nothing about her condition. She repeats the words condition, and Beth slams Malia to the wall. She runs out of the door, and when Malia attempts to go after her, a Dread Doctor shows up, breaks her neck, and Beth was another failed experiment. It didn't work the way they wanted her to because she didn't do what they wanted, so obviously they killed her. And I thought that was pretty crazy. I mean, just seeing that these people are just being, tortured and basically used for the Dread Doctors just shows that there's going to be a much bigger army. I really see the second half of this season going into some truly big, epic territory. Like, the Dread Doctors have this army, Scott doesn't. I mean, it's really sad stuff, but it's kind of something I don't think Teen Wolf's tackled before, which I really like. And meanwhile, at the hospital, Theo and Scott arrive and notice carnage all over, and Corey has been wrecking havoc all over, and when they walk past the hallway, he materializes out of the wall as if he was a chameleon, and the school bell rings, and Malia's walking down the hall in a very emotional state. She's obviously very upset with what just happened, and Stiles stops her and asks her what's going on. She says she hates this, she can't lose like this, and she's not like Scott. She doesn't want to see any more failures. Now, the thing I love about Malia is that I kind of see Malia honestly becoming the leader here, because Malia does more of what Scott should be doing. If you remember, Malia wants to kill people. Malia's okay with certain people getting killed. She's okay with that, and I think she needs to kind of convince Scott that it is okay to kill some people, because Scott has never killed anyone, and Malia has, and I like seeing that, definitely. So, Theo and Scott are searching all over for Corey. When the Dread Doctors arrive, Corey is hiding from everyone. When he hears a Dread Doctor approaching, he blends into a truck and makes no difference. He's stabbed and killed by the Dread Doctor, and that was huge. I mean, I didn't think Corey was going to die that quickly, but again, it just goes with the fact that the Dread Doctors don't really want Scott to have any allies. To me, that's what it seemed like, and the experiments are dying all around, and Scott knows that they have to find Hayden after seeing Corey's body, because he knows that Hayden probably is next. They're coming after her next. So Stiles is trying to reach Lydia to tell her that that dead chimeras are all around. She's too busy trying to get Parrish to start thinking by starting a fight with him. And it ends with his eyes turning orange as he turns and spots the location of the nematome with the bodies around it. And Lydia now knows that, yeah, this is what's happening to him. He's turning into this creature, and I thought that was definitely very well done. So back at the school, Stilinski meets up with Theo, who asks him if he's going to need a lawyer, and Theo tells Stilinski that Donovan was a Wendigo who was chasing Stiles down, and Theo tells a story, making himself look like the hero, and I have to say, I mean, he's doing a very good job making himself look innocent, definitely. Also, Cody Christensen, I think his name is, he's killing it. Honestly, he's killing it. He's awesome. And he tells the story as if he was Stiles, and basically does how Stiles felt, and basically, says how Stiles felt, and it's very interesting. So we see that this is Theo basically revealing his true side, and that he's not with them at all, and that he does want to work with the Dread Doctors. This really confirms it, and I love that. So Liam and Hayden are planning, well, I don't love it, but I'm just saying I want a great menacing villain, and we didn't have that at all last season. This is what we need in a villain. Like, Theo, awesome villain right here. I'm loving it. So, because everything he said before that was just so fake, and you knew he wasn't with them, so I like that Theo is in this vulnerable position, but he still is an awesome villain, really, he is. So Liam and Hayden are planning on running away together to escape everyone, which is probably the best thing to do. And she's worried about hurting him, but says he'd get over it. And I thought that was really sweet. I like how he's willing to hurt himself for her. And normally I think that was dumb that he'd do that. But in this situation, I mean, it's life or death for one of them, honestly. Like, one of them's going to live and one of them's going to die. That's what it's going to come down to at this point. So, as they take the money from Cinema, they have a moment together. The Dread Doctors appear out of nowhere. They duck behind the bar, trying to hide from the Dread Doctors, who begin smashing his way around. And this scene had me on the edge of my seat, and it was kind of a throwback to Allison and Scott in season 3, very much that. And I was really worried the scene was going to end up like that. I've said this before, but Hayden and Liam are very much like that. It's not a rehash. It's not. I just think they're trying to do another Scott and Allison because, you know, Scott's not really in that position right now, and Liam's kind of like a young Scott, which I really like seeing. So, unfortunately, we run to another doctor who knocks Liam off his feet. Parrish is worried about his unconscious actions and wants to turn himself in, and that might be the best thing to do, honestly, for him to do that. And Lydia says he might be covering up the supernatural instead of just the bodies, and she thinks he's in charge of keeping the supernatural happenings from the regular world, but Parrish says every time he takes a body to the Nematon, he adds one to the hundreds that are already there. So Liam's being beaten up by the Dread Doctors, tells Hayden to run. Scott comes in to save the day, and they manage to keep Hayden out of harm's way for a bit, and I was so worried that something bad was going to happen to Hayden. Luckily, nothing happened. The insane part is that nothing they do seems to affect the Dread Doctors, which I thought was interesting how they did that. And Scott can't even keep up with this dreadful enemy, but Theo comes in and tries his luck. Liam calls out for Hayden, who's captured and injected with a substance, and I was about to cry. I was like, no! Like, literally, I screamed at this point because I don't know. I mean, I just really like Hayden as a character. I don't want them to kill her off. She's a great character. They're doing some really great stuff with her. I really like what they're doing with her as a character, and I didn't want them to kill her off, and I'm happy that they didn't, because that would have been really dumb if they did that, because, you know, she shouldn't have died. If you're going to kill her off in the second half of the season. Don't kill her off when she's introduced. Just don't do that. She doesn't die, luckily, and both she and Liam are confused at what's going on, because obviously anyone else that's been, you know, drilled by the Dread Doctors, you know, injected with that substance, they die, and Hayden didn't die. So how does that work out? And I think that's very interesting. I feel like there's a reason why, and we just don't know it yet, which I like. So Theo tells the Dread Doctors he needs more time during their fight. They finally back off, and basically they're gonna finally let Theo take his time. And when it's all over, Scott asks where Hayden is, and she's with Liam, and she says she thinks she's okay. Liam tells Scott what happened. They think something might be going on internally, and he instructs them to meet him at the clinic. And Theo tells Liam to keep her awake, and during the drive, now you know that that's not what Theo's going to do. He's going to try to kill her. That's up. Well, he does want Hayden, but he's going to do something to screw them over. I just know he will. So during the drive, Liam comes up with an idea to turn Hayden into a werewolf, but Scott's the only one with the power to do so. I kind of see this happening because Hayden at this point seems like she's just as important as all the other characters, and I really do see her turning into something. I mean, she's a chimera right now, but I definitely see her turning into a werewolf. I definitely see that happening. I mean, if she dies, I'd love to see it happen. If something happens to her, I definitely see it happening. So, back at the station, Stilinski asks Lydia what Parrish thinks he's doing by locking himself up in the cell, and Lydia says protecting them all, and Parrish tells Stilinski that he's the one taking the bodies and doesn't know why and doesn't remember doing it, but he can't be let out. And Parrish says that he's dangerous, and basically Stilinski actually listens to him. I thought Stilinski was going to go off on him and say, oh no, there's no way, you're lying, but he's actually listening to him, and I think that's really interesting. I like that Parrish is kind of trying to control himself, because he's in this position right now where he has no idea what's going on, why this is happening, how to control himself, and I definitely see a lot of the second half of the season, now that Parrish knows what he is, being Parrish trying to control himself. I know that this is still the first half, but going in the second half, because we only have one episode left of this half of the season, going in the second half of the season, I really see that's what it's going to be. So, Stiles meets Scott at the clinic, and we get, by far, the most heartbreaking scene in the episode. I mean, this scene was just so sad, but it was so well acted. Dylan O'Brien killed it in this scene. This scene was incredible, because you knew it was going to happen here. You knew that the second that Stiles and Scott met up in this episode, it was not going to end well. Scott didn't want to listen to him, and basically Stiles tells him that he was having trouble with the Jeep, and Scott doesn't say anything. Instead, he holds up the wrench that Theo used to incremate him with, and Scott asks Stiles why he didn't tell him, and Stiles says he was going to, and Stiles says he couldn't, and Scott is just like, you killed Donovan, and Stiles says that Donovan was gonna kill Stilinski, and that everyone can't be like Scott. And I love this scene because he's saying, he's a true alpha, and we can't all be like a true alpha. We all have to do something bad every now and again. That's true. We're humans. We do bad things. And Stiles says not everyone can be flawless. And Stiles says he's human. He didn't have a choice. And I love that he said that because Stiles is the only character on the show besides Hayden that's human. And he has done some bad things, but he had to. He had to do it to protect his dad. He had no other, he had no other way to not have Stilinski be killed except for killing Donovan. There was really no other way to do this. And Stiles asks if he believes him. Scott says he wants to, and Stiles begs him to say he believes him, but Scott just bypasses it. He says they can't kill people, they're trying to save, and Stiles asks him one more time to say he believes it, and Scott says just the same thing. Stiles begs him to tell him how to fix it, and Scott tells him not to worry about Malia or Lydia, they'll find them, and that maybe Stiles should talk to the sheriff, and he leaves him right out in the rain to basically tend to Hayden. And this scene was just so sad because you see him go to Hayden and Liam's like, do you want to help her? And Scott says no, and it seems like he doesn't want to do anything, but it seems like Liam's going to try to get Scott back on his feet, and it's just such a sad scene because Scott at this point, he's lost everything. He's lost his best friend, he's lost his girlfriend, he's lost basically all of his pack, he's lost pretty much everything. It's just really sad to watch, but it was such an incredible episode. Oh my god, this episode is amazing. I cannot wait for next week's finale. It is going to be an incredible finale. I cannot wait to see what ends up happening in that finale. It's going to be amazing. Let's just get into this episode because there's a lot to talk about. First of all, what do I think that Scott and Stiles can fix this? Honestly, I don't know at this point. I kind of feel like they're setting up Stiles' death. Honestly, Stiles seeing himself with that Mercury, I don't see things going well for Stiles or Scott. I see them both losing a lot. I see them both having to face a lot of sacrifices, and I don't think that's going to end well at all. Do you think that Scott's going to turn Hayden into a werewolf? I don't know if this is going to happen. At this point, I don't think Scott's concerned about that. I don't know if Scott feels he has the ability to do that. He's kind of in this position now where he's all alone. He has no one except for Liam, really, and Mason, but that's really it. He doesn't really have anyone else. I like that Parrish is becoming aware of what he's becoming because obviously that's really good that he knows that, because it's really important that he understands what's happening to him, because obviously he is becoming this creature. He is taking these dead bodies, but he doesn't know why, and I kind of like Parrish in this position. I have to say, I think it's really interesting to watch and very, very compelling. I definitely really like it. Theo and the Dread Doctors, what do they want with Hayden? Obviously, she's a failed experiment, but Theo wants something with her. What is his initial plan for her? We don't know what it is. And how is Hayden not healed? Like, how is Hayden not killed by the Dread Doctors? I don't know. What exactly is happening to her? I don't really know what's going on with that. That's going to be very interesting. At this point, I kind of feel like Malia should lead the pack because she knows a lot more of what's going on and how to help them out. I definitely feel like she would be a better person to help them out. I definitely see that going well for them if Malia's helping them out. Scott at this point just seems like he can't defeat them. He doesn't know what to do. He's not as strong as them. He's just too weak, and he can't do it alone at this point. He's all alone. He really has no one, and it's really sad, but it's true. He has no one, and it's really sad to watch. Now, what is Stilinski going to do with Parrish? I don't know. He obviously is listening to him. He understands why Parrish... I don't know if he understands what Parrish is doing, but he at least listened to him. So he does have an idea of what Parrish is doing and why he's doing what he's doing, and we'll have to see where that goes. That's going to be very interesting. The Desert Wolf, I'm pretty sure we're going to see her next week because they have to bring that in somehow. That's really the only thing they haven't tied in, except for the whole how the hell does Lydia end up at Eichenhaus. I'm sure we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see that until the second half of the season. I see the second half of the season being very depressing and very sad, but I like this dark direction we're going in. I mean, Scott, for the most part, has had a pretty easy run, and now he's having to face a lot of hardships and a lot of really sad things and a lot of sacrifices, and I really like seeing Teen Wolf go in this dark direction. It worked really well for Season 3. Season 4 wasn't really that big of a deal, but this season is just so great, and I'm loving it, and I cannot wait for the mid-season finale next week. I know it's not going to let me down, and it's going to be incredible. I can't wait for it. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Overall, guys, I loved this episode. Such an amazing episode. I cannot wait for next week's episode. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for, I think, a movie review. I think it's going to be for a movie review. Tomorrow's my birthday, so I don't know what tomorrow's reviews are going to be, but we'll see. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.